All right, so the speech that I made today is basically discussing how Earth is a vitally important feature and how Earth is perfect to all living things because Earth was created perfectly in the environment that was first originally made for all living things because it was created perfectly. There's lots of factors on Earth that make it perfect for living. And I realized myself when I walk outside, why do I walk outside like where I live, like why is the weather so cold for so long where I live and why can it be so warm? But I realized to myself that it's just part of Earth's factors that make it just suitable for living. If it was too warm in other places and too cold, then it would not be suitable for all living things. So moving on, besides that, the first factor that I want to get into is the fact that Earth actually rotates on its axis, and it's actually affected by the temperatures that it's rotating on its axis. And so, one of the first things I want to talk about is I want to dive in first about how, according to the National Geographic, the Earth rotates to a specific degree, allowing it to be exposed to the warmth of the sun. So, what happens on an annual basis is it's basically the concept of how summer is created into winter, almost like a forecast shadow. When somebody walks out in a sunny day and you see a shadow right over you, that's almost a perfect example of exactly what's happening. When the Earth rotates on a tilted axis, the sun hits the Earth at a specific angle, and that side of the Earth gets the warmth and the heat from the sun, and then the other side is what casts the shadow. The shadows that's being casted from the other side of the Earth is what's actually called winter. Um, People, they like to refer to this as like this shadow overcast, but really it's just the difference that's happening on Earth between winter and summer. It's actually just like a whole shadow being casted over the other side of the globe. So that's one of the main things I want to talk about. How it's really interesting how when the Earth rotates around and the sun directly impacts where the Earth is hitting, that's how temperatures changes and seasons are fluctuated throughout the year annually. Now, one of the other subpoints I wanted to make was how in order for plants to create the process of photosynthesis, they actually rely on the tilt of the Earth of the axis because plants rely on solar energy from the sun. And according to National Geographic's, the process of photosynthesis require rays from the sun originally. They require light beams. And what happens through the process of photosynthesis is the chlorophyll on the pigments of the plant leaves absorb the beams of the light rays from the sun, and they actually go through a chemical reaction. And what happens is the photons in the photosynthesis of the cell walls of the plant cells actually divide the electrons inside the reaction into oxygen and water ions. And the oxygen ions is what we need as humans in order to live in the environment. So it's kind of like a chemical reaction, chain reaction going on in order for us to actually be able to breathe as humans and live in the environment. We actually rely on the rotation of the axis because the sun provides the warmth for the plants on Earth, and then the plants give us the oxygen back. So it's kind of just like a cycle that's going on, and it's just a whole chemical reaction happening. So that's one of the main points I also wanted to make of why the rotation of the axis is very important to the Earth. But I also realized that in my research that the Earth is also contributes different amount of water from the rotation of the axis. If we realize that, yeah, like the rotation of the axis does affect weather patterns on Earth, but due to the fact that those weather patterns are affected, water is also distributed differently among Earth. So water is a very essential to life for all living things. Like we all need water. We need water. Humans need water. Everybody needs water. It's natural resources that is we just need to survive, which is another example of why the rotation of the axis is very important to the Earth. I've also done in my research that the rotation of Earth allows us to measure time and value. If there's no rotation on Earth, we actually would not be able to measure time and value on Earth. Meaning is when the Earth rotates, the Earth literally rotates only once 24 hours in a single time around its axis, goes circularly around. And at that time being, time is actually measurable. And that in order, what that actually enables people on Earth, it gives us puts a value into time, meaning we're able to calculate how long things are living, how long resources are needed, and that way we are able to use these resources more valuable through the environment and just have them supplied longer to us. So that's also another reason why the Earth's axis is very important, because if we know that we can measure time from the axis, we could make sure that our resources are distributed and are being used properly throughout the environment at a measurable time. And also, we age as people. We all know that. That also lets us know how we're getting older. I want to transition into my second main point that I made here, besides all that, which was research that I actually did with NASA, the National Geographic as well, is how the moon is actually a perfect correlation with the Earth that helps keep the Earth in balance. It's another great partner with the Earth that shows exactly why the Earth is created perfectly for all living things. So there's one main thing here that a lot of people don't know, is that rotation of the axis of the Earth actually has a wobble in it. So what happens on an annual basis is the moon itself has a gravitational pull in the distance between Earth and the moon itself. And between that gravitational pull, the gravitational pull that the moon provides from the gravity produced on Earth creates the axis to be balanced. And if the axis was to be thrown off, originally the Earth has that thrown off wobble axis. We actually don't feel it because the Earth is rotating on an annual basis, but there's a little wobble in the axis of the Earth and actually throws off the axis of the Earth. But the moon helps it keep it in balance through its gravitational pull. So the reason why the moon is very important is because if that was to happen, if the axis was to be thrown off, then we would experience extreme and hazardous temperatures on Earth that would not be livable, which is showing exactly why the moon is also very essential to Earth and why Earth has just created a perfect environment around itself in order to be suitable for all living things. And there's another thing very interesting about the Earth that I did my research with Sciencing and National Geographic. I realized that the moon also causes tides in the ocean. And what actually happens in the ocean is, on an annual basis, the tides come up from the water in the ocean caused by the gravitational pull of the moons. So the retracting gravitational pull between the moon itself, between the sun and the Earth, have high tides that come up on an annual basis and low tides that come up. And this is very impactful because this also distributes the amount of water that is distributed through the weather patterns among the Earth. Because of course our water resources are just recollected from precipitation, and they're just dropped back down to Earth as water. So this actually also creates ecosystems for the animals, which are environments to all resources on Earth, because that way, if the water tides go low, they create new ecosystems for animals underwater, and those ecosystems underwater could provide resources to us and are very essential to nutrients and the balance of Earth itself. So besides that, the moon is very important, and that's most of the information that I have today. In closure, the Earth has become a very stable planet in the billions of years that has developed over time. It's become very important, and there's many factors within inside itself that I could keep on going on explaining that made it to be what it is today. After my review of my main points, one of the many features that I want to mention is that Earth is simply suitable for all living life. There's no planet out there that was made perfect compared to this one. We are perfectly in balance, and we're just perfectly in balance in correlation with the whole solar system that we are in. So next time when you walk outside in the freezing atmosphere and you look outside and you think it's cold, how about you be a little bit grateful, and you have to realize that the reason why it's cold, the reason why the temperatures are not to your desire, is because somewhere on the other side of the Earth is working at its hardest in order to make all life on Earth balance for all of us in order to live. And that's it. That's all I have for my speech. Thank you.